is a young couple. They were part of the royal family. They were their royal highnesses. They're now just the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, and we've exported them, Candace, to you.
There are takedowns. Then there are takedowns so surgical, so devastating, they leave no myth untouched. And this week, Meghan Markle just met hers. Because Candace Owens didn't just criticize the Duchess of Sussex. She disassembled her live unfiltered, zero gloves. She weaponizes her victimhood, and people are finally tired of it. Cue the royal rage spiral. Because when Meghan Markle's image cracks, it doesn't chip, it shatters in slow motion over 17 glossy interviews, a Spotify exit, and a surprise Vogue cover shot in sad lighting. And for years, the cycle's been the same. PR damage control, podcast drop, emotional monologue, repeat. But this time, the public didn't bite. Not only is no one rushing to defend her, some are actually cheering. Why? Because what Candace Owens just did wasn't a hot take. It was a cultural autopsy. She didn't just question Meghan's motives. She exposed the formula. Let me break it down for you. Quick recap for the 3 people who haven't OD'd on the Markle saga yet. She married into royalty, did an Oprah sit-down that set the internet on fire, fled the palace, signed $100 million deals, launched a brand, a podcast, a documentary, and an empire built entirely on the phrase, "My truth." And for a while, it worked. She was the new Diana, only with better SEO. But here's the thing about being the face of victimhood in a $14 million Montecito mansion. It ages like milk. Because at some point, the aesthetic of pain, the curated suffering, the perfectly angled sadness, it stops feeling inspiring and starts feeling expensive. She wants to be seen as powerless while profiting off the system she claims crushed her. That's not brave. That's a business model. Boom. That's the quote that cracked the crown, and it hit because it was true. You could feel it. No metaphor, no filter, just facts. What Candace did live on national television was reveal the playbook. It's a formula, and it's exhausted. The shift, even the left is nodding. Here's where it gets wild.
Meghan Markle's entire career, she never wanted people to know that she was Black. She never wore that on her sleeve. She never spoke about her Blackness. If we had looked at her, I maybe would have assumed that she was Hispanic. No one would have ever guessed that she was Black.
It wasn't just conservatives clapping. Even commentators on the left, normally allergic to Candace Owens, started tilting their heads and going, okay, she kind of has a point though. Not because they love Candace, but because they're tired of the Meghan machine, the endless PR spin, the podcast episodes with zero substance, the victim arcs with luxury filters. Suddenly, the girl who cried institutional harm became less believable than the woman calling her out. And Meghan, according to anonymous insiders, she was livid, reportedly shaken, hurt, fuming, which, in palace terms, is one polite cough away from a total emotional meltdown. This wasn't a feud, and it was a collision. So let's zoom out. This wasn't just Candace versus Meghan. This was brand versus backlash. The moment a culture finally hit saturation with curated pain narratives, Candace didn't just roast Meghan. She torched the framework that made her famous. Because when you turn victimhood into content, you better pray the audience never notices. This week, they noticed. Here's what nobody's telling you. This takedown wasn't spontaneous. It was orchestrated, strategically timed, precisely worded, and perfectly staged for maximum cultural whiplash. This wasn't a moment, it was a detonation, and the countdown started hours before the first syllable hit the air. Let's rewind the clock. It started with a tweet. Simple, ominous, no names needed. And that was enough. The Sussex squad imploded before the segment even aired.
Who is partially Black, but Meghan Markle didn't have any of her Black family members at her wedding. This is a woman that was escaping her Blackness throughout her entire life until she realized that it could be used to her advantage.
Protect Meghan started trending. Fan accounts flooded the comments. Reaction tweets went DEFCON 1. This better not be what I think it is. Oh no, she didn't. Please God, not again. And just to twist the knife, Candace posted one more thing. A photo of Meghan and Dior captioned, "Boom! Internet on fire. Lines drawn, audience primed, 8 p.m., prime time, no delay. Candace Owens goes live, no teleprompter, no filter, no apology. And in the first 45 seconds, she lights the match. Meghan Markle's greatest performance wasn't in suits. It was convincing the world she was powerless while cashing million-dollar checks. Boom! Mic drop, Twitter trending, but she wasn't done. Because what came next was a 3-part takedown, clean, brutal, and almost too perfect. Candace, you don't get to turn your trauma into a Netflix franchise and call it bravery. She accused Meghan of building a career off carefully crafted suffering, of crying royal abuse while monetizing every tear. Every time she's questioned, it's racism. Every time she's caught, it's misogyny. There's no accountability, just hashtags. Brutal and devastatingly effective. Because even Meghan's fans were starting to ask, when does this stop being activism and start being manipulation? Strong women don't hide behind titles, or behind their husbands, or behind curated fragility. And there it was. The third blow. The myth shattered. What Meghan's team expected? Sympathy. What they got? Silence. And memes. She had us in the first half, not gonna lie. This was uncomfortable but true. We wanted a queen, we got a Kardashian with a therapist. Even the safe spaces started to flip. TikTok edits got ruthless. YouTube reaction videos hit back-to-back uploads. Gen Z, normally her ride or dies, started pulling back. Because this time, the victim card didn't swipe.
That they would end up in LA because that was Meghan's dream. Her dream was to be an A-lister, and she was unable to make it to those A-list parties on the basis of her own merit as an actress. You know, she wasn't a very good actress.
Less than 2 hours after the segment ends, boom! An impromptu photo of Meghan volunteering, no makeup, baby in arms, smiling through pain, giving back, staying grounded, strategic sincerity, PR 101. Anonymous sources leaked to People magazine. Meghan was deeply hurt by the personal attacks and shocked by the vitriol. Then, a surprise podcast episode titled Owning Your Power in the Face of Hate. Guest star Serena Williams, because when the backlash hits too hard, you bring in someone actually respected to pad the fall, but it didn't work. Here's the real damage. For the first time, the PR machine sputtered. The moves were predictable. The tears felt rehearsed. And the empowerment narrative? It rang hollow. Because Candace didn't just break Meghan's image. She broke the algorithm behind it, the strategy, the cycle, the formula. This wasn't just a feud. It wasn't a spicy comment. It wasn't even personal. It was symbolic warfare. 2 women, 2 brands, 2 ideologies, and only one gets to control the narrative. Because what you just watched wasn't a takedown, it was a reckoning. Meghan's brand has always been built on one thing: perception. She's not a politician. She's not a working actress. She's not even technically a royal anymore.
These email addresses that sort of like names, again, that you would never guess, that I will give them at some point in their lives when they're older.
But the media treated her like some sacred trinity of modern virtue. Feminism, racial justice, mindful empowerment. She cried on Oprah, she was brave. She talked about suicide, she was applauded. She hinted at racism, the world exploded. For a while, it worked. But the longer she stayed in the spotlight, the more people started asking, where's the substance? What do you actually stand for? Aside from curated pain and flower arrangement metaphors, can you trademark being sad? Then there's Candace, where Meghan represents polished pain. Candace represents raw refusal. She refuses to cry on cue. She refuses to trade on identity. She refuses to be liked. And that's why she works. Because in 2025, controversial plus consistent equals cultural currency. You're not brave because you cried. You're brave when you build, when you show up, when you don't sell your story to Spotify. And that hit, it split the culture in half. Because no matter what side you're on, you felt it. Let's talk facts. Meghan built her post-palace empire around identity. A Black woman challenging the monarchy.
The things that you're not going to frame, the things that you're not going to put pen to paper in a journal, but they will end up at one point in their life.
A feminist inside an outdated institution, an outsider in a royal machine. It mattered at first, but then she sold it. Books, podcasts, Netflix docs, vanity awards. Suddenly that identity wasn't a symbol. It was a strategy, oppressed but in Prada. And for millions of viewers, the contradictions got louder than the quotes. We're in an era of overstimulation. Everyone has a platform. Everyone has a story. Everyone wants to be seen. But not everyone is credible. And Meghan's credibility? It's been leaking since 2022. Palace racism, media bullying, miscarriages. I didn't Google Harry. I didn't know I had to curtsy. At some point, the audience blinks and says, wait, what even is the truth anymore? Candace versus Meghan came down to one thing: authenticity. Candace? Messy, yes. Divisive, absolutely. But real, you always know where she stands, even if it pisses you off. Meghan? She shapeshifts.
I have full body chills right now.
For your whole life. And here's everything and every moment that I wanted to tell you how much I love you and like how proud I am of you and of all things. Look back and go, oh my gosh, she has loved us so much.
In the palace, she was quiet. Post-palace, she was wounded. Then she was empowered. Then entrepreneurial. Now podcast ghost. Who is Meghan Markle, really? Candace forced the question. She held up the mirror. And for the first time in years, the culture looked, let's not sugarcoat it. Candace didn't drag Meghan. She collapsed the illusion around her. She said what millions whispered, but no one dared say on cable news. That Meghan isn't a movement. She's a media product. A beautifully lit, well-spoken, aesthetically packaged brand built on soft-focused trauma and trauma-adjacent content. And once the spell breaks, no Vogue cover can fix it. This isn't a feud. It's a face-off between two icons of power. One curated, one chaotic. One crowned, one crucified. And both unapologetically strategic. Let's break down the characters behind the commentary. To understand Meghan Markle, you have to understand what she symbolized.
I'm nurturing you and I see you so deeply, and I love being able to see your growth, and I'm just so proud of them.
So beautiful.
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't expecting that one.
She wasn't just a woman who married into power. She was sold to us as the one who would transform it. Biracial, American, feminist, outsider. She walked into the whitest institution on earth and told the world it broke her. That story exploded. But over time, something shifted. Because Meghan doesn't share power, she narrates it. Every docuseries, every podcast, every panel. It's the Meghan Show, soft-filtered, emotionally optimized, PR packaged, trauma, healing, visibility, journaling, lavender candles. But the truth? She doesn't want to lead the culture. She wants to be loved by it. And when that love fades, she plays the misunderstood card. Again, Candace, on the other hand, she doesn't want your love. She wants your attention. And she gets it by swinging at everything sacred. Race, gender, celebrity, identity. If it's untouchable, she's touching it with a blowtorch, dragged BLM, exposed Harry and Meghan, called out Fauci, still standing. She's not a guest at the cultural table. She's the one flipping it over on live TV. And that's what makes her dangerous. Because unlike Meghan, you can't polish her, you can't prep her, and most importantly, you can't control her. Meghan launched a podcast called Archetypes. The whole point? Breaking labels that hold women back. The irony? She's defined by labels. Victim, Duchess, feminist, survivor. Meanwhile, Candace is what happens when you burn the labels. She's walked into interviews where people called her a traitor, a grifter, a sellout, and she smiled because she's not there to be accepted. She's there to disrupt. Meghan wants to be understood.
I'm having these like aha moments right now, thinking about doing that, and also about how many people are going to start doing that.
Yeah.
Start doing that, because that's so beautiful. And I think about like
Candace wants to be feared. And that's why this takedown hit so hard. Because it wasn't just criticism, it was exposure. Let's talk about the part no one wants to say out loud. Candace triggers Meghan, not because of her tone, not because of her platform, but because Candace represents everything Meghan claims to be. A Black woman, unfiltered, unapologetic, respected without royal proximity. That messes with Meghan's entire positioning. Because if Candace can be powerful without playing the victim, then Meghan's whole brand starts to feel like a performance. This wasn't just shade. It was existential. Let's compare the mechanics. Meghan is crafted. Her voice is soft. Her outfit's precise. Her IG captions sound like they were written in a candlelit workshop with a self-help ghostwriter. She's the human version of a Pinterest board. Candace? She'll go live in gym clothes and call out both sides of the aisle before breakfast. No lighting team, no handlers, just rhetoric, rage, and receipts. And that's why Meghan can't win this, because Candace speaks in unscripted punches. And Meghan reads like a teleprompter in human form.
the things she said to me toward the end, when she was basically like, whatever you do in life, don't change. It'd be so sad if you changed. And I'm like, anything, and you can, you know, and she's like, you know, basically what she is saying is who you are.
Here's the truth. Nobody watches these two without picking a side. You're either Team Meghan, misunderstood queen, survivor of institutional cruelty, still rising, or Team Candace, realist, chaos engine, cultural disruptor with no fear. But here's the plot twist Brian always points out. Most people, they're not rooting for either. They're just tired of being manipulated. They don't want curated victimhood. They don't want constant outrage. They just want truth. And in that one viral segment, Candace Owens did what Meghan hasn't in years. She told it raw, unfiltered, and unafraid. And just like that, the Duchess has no clothes, We've seen the arc, the rise, the branding, the backlash, the media machine, and now the verdict. And sorry, Montecito stands. This one's not going to be soft lit with a podcast outro, because after Candace Owens eviscerated Meghan Markle on live TV, the public didn't just gasp. They moved on. Once upon a time, Meghan Markle could do no wrong. She was the underdog, the survivor, the cultural mirror.
Like, that is the most beautiful.
It's time capsule, all the things. And I do
and
a
it's
lot
your heart every day that you're giving to them in that way.
Yes,
Like, it's
and,
your, like,
and it becomes meditative for me too.
But after a Spotify flop to raw consequences, from protection to public indifference, Meghan didn't lose to Candace. She lost to fatigue. Because when you sell your pain like a product, eventually the customer returns it. Candace said what everyone else was too scared to. I used to defend Meghan, now I feel dumb. Imagine living in a mansion and still playing oppressed. She peaked on Oprah. Everything since has been reruns.
So it's like they went through that stage where they were so little and they would go, "Mama, can I hold you?" Because they didn't know. It was like, "Mama, can you hold me?" And I knew one day it would change, but I have it. So I send them those voices like, "Here you are at 2 saying this. Here's you singing a lullaby tonight."
Oof. It's one thing to be criticized. It's another to become a cultural parody. And Meghan's not being attacked anymore. She's being ignored. Let's be fair. Is there a comeback arc? Maybe, but it's going to require something we've never seen from Meghan Markle. Vulnerability without a camera crew, humility without a photo shoot, a real unscripted reckoning. Because the whole I'm healing and sipping matcha and Montecito vibe, it's giving nothing, it's giving brand fatigue. And if nothing changes, she won't be a royal exile. She'll be a case study. So here it is, the final word. Candace Owens didn't just dismantle Meghan Markle. She exposed an entire media ecosystem built on curated narratives, untouchable branding, and emotional leverage. And for once, nobody rushed to fix it. No emergency cover story. No tears. No applause. Just silence. And side eyes. Game over, Meghan. Candace didn't just win the debate. She flipped the entire game board. And you're just the cautionary tale we won't buy again.